content discussed on this program is often medical in nature and is used for informational purposes only. No content discussed should be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Hello. Our new and improved Rapid Recovery Report sponsored by RomTech, the modern technology of rehabilitation. My name's Tori McGee, and it's been a while since we've seen you guys last. So we actually have a new format going on here. You will see us the last Thursday of every month, and we'll be bringing on a variety of different experts now. So we've got, surgeons, we've got people in the field that you've seen. We also are bringing in those that are experts in sports med and movement and all things health. So we're really excited to kick off our podcast return with a really special guest, a physical therapist by trade and expert movement specialist. James Fowler has been running James Fowler Physical Therapy in New York over the last 20 years. He's a certified exercise specialist by the American College of Sports Medicine and is a member of the American Physical Therapy Association. Prior to opening his practice, James spent 7 years coordinating the motion analysis laboratory at Beth Israel Medical Center, where he developed an evaluative tool for the analysis of running, golfing, and throwing. His expertise in motion analysis has earned him the title of the official physical therapist for the New York Knicks, go Knicks, and the New York Liberty basketball teams, where he not only provided rehab for these teams, but also motion analysis for performance enhancement. So welcome to our show, James. We're so excited to have you.
Well, hi, Tori. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited about it. It's going to be a fun time. So now we've heard of on our show, orthopedic surgeons, physical therapists, sports med specialists. Tell us, though, what movement science is and what sparked your interest in this particular industry.
Well, I think if you ask that question to 10 or 20 different people in this profession, you're going to get probably a different definition. But basically, what you're going to find is that movement science is a study of movement, and within that, function and performance. And that doesn't just apply only obviously to athletes. It really applies to just the general public. We all have to move about in our day. We all use our bodies as the vehicles to get us from A to B. And some of us exercise, and some of us play sports, and some of us, just go about, our lives. And, really what movement science to me is to looking at the fundamentals of the foundation of what everything is built on. And that is especially exciting when you're dealing with athletes, because for me, I can look at many different sports and you can basically see the root fundamentals of like how they're going about striking a ball, throwing a ball, or whatever their activity is. You're going to see the basic principles there. And that actually is really exciting for me, because that's where if I see a movement fault or a positional issue related to their particular sport, I know where I can go to make some real changes. So, and then my own interest from this is I've been working in, obviously as a physical therapist for 25 years, but I've been playing competitive sports since I was 6 years old, and I played every sport under the sun. So for me, it's just a natural thing to look at movement from this perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense as a competitive athlete that you're competitive in physical therapy too, and coming up with the new and improved things.
Exactly.
So now, congrats, speaking of that, on your movement lab. So it only seems logical then, I guess, to open a movement analysis lab within your physical therapy practice. So you're basically teaching individuals how to optimize performance while they avoid injury, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And I want to clarify, because there is the distinction between, well, there's movement analysis and there's motion analysis and there's video analysis. And it just in terms of, for the viewers to understand, motion analysis is really the systems where you have infrared cameras and this is basically what you're going to see in universities, where you're getting into the whole biomechanics. what we have done here is created a room, which is really like our playroom. And it kind of came about in, making lemonade out of lemons, during the pandemic. And my landlord was very helpful for us to kind of help us with rent. And I noticed that some of the spaces started getting empty. And there was this one place right next to my office, right next door. And I said, that would be perfect if we could get that space and build a movement lab and do all our high-end dynamic activities, the jumping, the hopping, the leaping there, not in the middle of the room with our other patients where, all sorts of different therapies are going on. Mm-hmm. I thought that would be great. And so he was so fortunate or so kind actually to really provide, this opportunity because, for me, it was actually a dream come true. I've always wanted to have a space, especially in New York, space is hard to come by. I've always wanted to have a space where I could take and we can be uninhibited about what we do. We can strike, throw, kick. And it's the room is kind of designed for that. And then to be able to take some technology and put cameras in there and do video analysis, now we have an educational tool. And that for me is the real exciting point.
Gosh, that's so cool. And I know that we flipped through a couple of photos while you were talking about it. And it looks so freaking cool.
It's fun, I've always envied the PT practices that are built in these big, massive gyms, and they walk out and then they have this complete massive playroom and they end up doing like endless things in there. And it's like, God damn, I just want to have that. I just want to be able to have that. And so, it's not a massive space, but it's great. And it's going to be a great opportunity for us to really explore.
Absolutely. I mean, every time I kind of think of physical therapy, and I would assume most are the same, I don't want to say boring, but it's something that you kind of dread a little bit because usually you're doing physical therapy because you're injured. It's not fun. It's not exciting to do any of the work that you're supposed to be doing to get better. And so if you have this motion analysis going on to keep you from getting hurt, here's what you do to not get hurt. Here's a brand new thing. And it's really exciting. And it's explaining to you why you're hurting, what can fix it, instead of just here, do these exercises.
Absolutely. And it's like the other part of all this is the idea of physical therapy, because of our current situation with insurances and all the constraints that sometimes gets placed on us. We want to do more, but we sometimes are stuck to get them just to the point where they get out the door and maybe they can start their activities and you kind of keep your fingers crossed, all things work. But this is another opportunity that we can take them all the way through the end. So exactly as you're saying, it's like the boring part is not exactly knowing where this is going to lead you. And you're just hoping that by getting stronger or increasing the range of motion or getting the connective tissue moving, that's going to work. And we're very successful. But to actually get you back to doing it and repeating it time and time again to give you the confidence. And this is so important with the ACLs that we do when we on the reconstructions in terms of the rehab, is to get them beyond the injury mentally and really to get them to repeating their activity. So so this is exactly it. Make it fun, make it so that they have this something to shoot for and have the 100% confidence that they've fully recovered.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of our guests that we've had previously on the show deal with sports injuries, surgeries and stuff that are an effect, I guess, of being injured after the fact. So your expertise focuses on how individuals an athlete or just someone who's looking how to exercise properly can do it right in the first place to avoid injuries, right? So
exactly.
What types of patients do you work with the most? And I assume you see a lot of athletes too.
We see a lot of athletes, but on that, every PT practice also sees the other, from 10 to 90. We have the gamut. So we have professional athletes, we have, college athletes, high school athletes. And, the key for us, and obviously in the athletic population, is that their injuries, most of their injuries are coming from something that's done over a repetitive strain, repeated motions over and over time again. And yes, overuse is usually the definition of why these injuries occur. But what we want to do is be able to look at it from the standpoint of like, well, why did it get overused? What was in the motion of the movement that led to that particular part of the body being strained repeatedly? And so then we're getting back to, like I was saying, to like the fundamentals of movement, like the basic core foundations of how they're using their body, how they're using the lower half in relationship to the upper half. Where is there a break? You know, you told me earlier that you play golf, and you know, this is exactly the areas where, especially as older populations want to keep playing, that, you know, their ability to understand how to keep that relationship. And plus now with technology and people hitting the ball further and further and further, you'll see people try to swing harder and harder, and it leads to a lot of issues. So we want to look at efficiency. That's our key.
Yeah. Not everybody can be Tiger Woods. Sorry, guys.
No, and you shouldn't even try, because it did great for him, but eventually, you know, his body broke.
I mean, Tiger Woods couldn't even be Tiger Woods.
Exactly. And this is, I'm telling you, you see a lot of injuries in a lot of sports, and this is probably one of the number one reasons. It's like everyone's playing for now, and longevity is not really in the way that we're going about it.
Right. I mean, it's hard. It's hard when you want to be able to compete with the people on TV, but you are not at the level of the people on TV, and that's what does you in.
You don't know what they have to do in order to compete at that
level. That's right. So explain to me then what a typical session of yours would look like.
Well, our sessions, well, first of all, we tell our patients, you're going to be there at least an hour. Okay. And because our approach is that we've talked a lot about movement, but we also, you know, we put our time into the manual part. We believe that, and I personally believe that the manual therapy is so intricately connected to getting them better through the mechanics, because connective tissue, you know, the ability to like open up the tissue in order for them to get their range of motion. So of course we have to deal with the acute issues. We have to deal with muscle strains, ligamental strains, and we have to get that better. But on the manual side of it, we will spend a lot of time in order to try to get the length in the tissue back, and in order for them to have the range of motion to do the activities that they need to do. So we'll do 30 to 45 minutes of manual therapy. Then we do another 30 to 45 minutes of our therapeutic exercise, depending on, you know, the particular diagnosis. Our ACLs are there for at least an hour and a half, maybe up to 2 hours. And so, you know, we want to incorporate the both ends of it. And we also feel like on the manual side of it is that this is also a way for us to give people an opportunity to sense their own bodies and understand, like it's our hands are our teaching tools to further them understanding how to use their bodies.
Yeah. Okay. So now, I mean, you said it starts kind of off manually. Now, what type of equipment and technology are you using then to analyze your patients? And I'm sure it's different for different injuries. It
does. And I mean, we're, you know, from one standpoint where it's very straight up physical therapy practice, we're obviously going to use our physical therapy modalities that we use to deal with pain and swelling. But we also are going to use our other modalities within the gym. We do, free weights. We have a leg press. We have a lot of the cable column systems. We also have a yoga wall, which we use. So we incorporate within that. We actually do a lot of our Pilates work off the yoga wall, where we can do a lot of hip stabilization activities with bands. And then, you know, we have our other equipment, such as what we have in the movement lab, where we have our plyo boxes and another yoga wall in there so we can now incorporate different bands and resistance to work different planes of movement. So we also, you know, adding the cameras in there, we have we use the V1 Sport, which we can capture up to 240 frames per second for movement. And so that's our educational tool right there.
That's amazing. You sold me. I'm coming out to New York tomorrow.
That's great.
Now, as a movement specialist, this is exciting. I mean, you're a lot cooler than I am because you've been a guest on the CBS Morning Show talking
Right.
about motion analysis for golfers. So we'll go back to golf because I like golf, you like golf, and we have some listeners that enjoy golf as well. So what's the most common advice that you deliver? And if you have any pointers for our audience.
Well, I do, but I have to, there has to be a disclaimer because
Sure.
I'm not a golf pro.
Sure.
And I'm not a golf instructor. But what I do is, and as I look at, again, the root fundamentals of what the golf swing is based on. And I'll say like the number one thing that I often see is I ask somebody, okay, tell me, before they even swing, I say, tell me what a weight shift is. Demonstrate to me a weight shift. And I know based on how they're doing what they think a weight shift is basically how they're going to swing that club. And I would say so many times a weight shift for too many people is just shifting their hips side to side.
Yeah.
And that is like the death of a golf swing because that's when you start getting reverse pivots and you're swaying. And so teaching the understanding of what a weight shift is. So, putting your feet on a scale, 2 scales, and you have 50-50. And can you just move your body just like a millimeter to the right and increase your weight to a 60-40 or 70-30 or 80-20, and then reverse it to the other foot? Then we're starting to understand that a weight shift is based on a vertical relationship and not a side-to-side relationship.
Yeah. Okay. And that'll help with timing a lot too.
It will help with timing.
Timing's the magic part of golf.
Timing is the magic part, but you know what the magic part, when you look at now are the best golfers in the world and you see them turn, their head does not move at all.
No.
They're rock solid. So when they turn back, they know exactly where they started, they know where they're going, and they're dealing with micrometers in terms of how they want to contact that ball. They're not swaying.
Oh yeah, not at all. Okay, that's really interesting. So now in regards to the physical therapy practice, we've been hearing a lot about active release techniques as a non-invasive way to heal, different types of sports injuries. And it's my understanding that this is a treatment that's used for soft tissue disorders. Yeah. Can you describe a little bit more about how that technique works to alleviate pain?
Well, yeah, the challenge when we get a patient and they have repetitive strains, such as athletes, ART came from a chiropractor, Dr. Leahy in Colorado, and he worked with a ton of triathletes. In fact, he was a triathlete himself. And they actually literally put tents of ART practitioners there actually at Ironman competitions. So what they were looking at and how the technique is developed is looking at adherence of tissue and how does the adherence of tissue affect movement. So in repetitive strain syndromes, when a tissue does not glide on itself like it needs to, then it deviates and you end up moving differently because you can't move through that adherence. So ART is really simple in the sense you just have to know your anatomy and know, where a muscle starts and where it goes, because you apply pressure at the adherence, at the adhesions, and then you have them move through the motions of that muscle. And so you basically gonna go muscle to muscle. And you're always working different levels of tissue. You're always working different, angles in order for you free up the motion. So it's a manual technique, but it's also a diagnostic technique to look at, overall mobility. And, that's why you see a lot with runners and especially he does a lot of work with, the triathlete world. Okay. And the whole population. And it applies to everybody. It's not just athletes.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to me. Now, what do you look for to determine if a person's a candidate for like that kind of treatment?
Yeah.
Any examples of that?
Well, you have to always do your red flags first because, not everything is an adhesion. And so you have to kind of go through and do your assessment, make sure that, that what you're seeing is motion inhibited by restricted tissue. So again, this would be applied to anybody. Athletes comes into place because of the repetitive activities that they do. And, and it's often associated with, a location of pain. So when they have pain at that particular point, that's the area that you want to work on. So it's, it's very specific to locale. And, if the person has a pain in the shoulder, you don't, in this particular technique, you don't work on their hip. It's often associated to where you find the tenderness of palpation.
Okay. And I mean, knowing anatomy and how to move, I'm sure, is why we rely on you. Because listen, half of us don't even know how to pronounce kinesiology, okay?
Yeah. Right.
Let alone know where everything is.
I mean, know what it is, actually.
Yeah. Because it's like something hurts, it hurts. Is it the bone? Is it the joint? Is it the muscle? I don't know. It just hurts.
It does. And that's the fun part of what I do and what we do as physical therapists, because this is our bread and butter. We are educators, and we need to always keep our profession alive with that idea that we need to teach people about their bodies. And because nobody else is going to do that. Trainers do a wonderful job. Pilates teachers and yoga, Pilates teachers and yoga instructors obviously are in that same realm, but we're all educators. And so we're educating the uneducated.
Yeah. It's so funny. We live in these vessels that we really know nothing about, and we have to rely on other people like you guys to tell us what to do.
It is kind of strange. I always say this. No, I don't know why, but there was never a manual given to how things work. Yeah. And so we have to kind of create the manual, which also kind of goes back into my physical education background is what happened to PE, physical education, because these kids are not getting educated.
No, not at all.
Not on their body.
And this goes back to my PE teachers in school, okay?
Yeah.
How was running a mile going to help me learn anything I needed to
know? So it just, it's funny. It's like,
I knew
this is my biggest pet peeve. And, in my next life, I think I'm going to try to figure out how to bring real physical education back to schools.
I love that. I would have loved that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, because this is so interesting to me. And I would imagine it's interesting to everybody. We've all got one of these, we've all got a body that we live in. So
Exactly.
Now, you've given us a ton of really great information. And like I said, I'd love to come see your lab in person. So I'm going to look up some videos and stuff online. But tell me, do you have any exciting projects that we could be on the lookout for, or anything that you want to plug?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of projects. That's kind of how I roll. I probably have too many ideas, and so yes. First of all, we have specifically connected to the motion lab, the movement and sports lab is what we're officially calling it. The movement and sports lab. There is two programs we're really building out of that. We're building our sports analysis program where we're using that. Obviously, they are our high technology, high speed cameras for analysis of movement in sport. And so we're trying to reach out to the young athletes. That's actually, because we're finding that even when we get to 19, 20 years old, they're kind of hard to change their habits. We want to get to the 11 and 12 with the ones who are just starting off. So we want to be able to have a little more outreach into the youth leagues, not just baseball, softball, but soccer, any sport that, we can get involved with. So that's one part that we're really excited about building. And also on our movement aspect of it is our neuro. We have a therapist, Dina Gerstander, and she is a specialist in Parkinson's and movement disorders. So what we did also on the other side of our wall there is we did create a movement living room, treatment room. So that allows us to kind of experience, have the patients experience who have had, neurological issues, have an opportunity to do therapy in a kind of more of a living room atmosphere. And that's a big program that we're trying to push along. Plus, we're working with Tamir Kafir. He does orthotics based in Israel, and he's a leading orthotic producer for the top 100 tennis players in the world.
Wow.
Djokovic is one of them, but he also works with the Dallas Mavericks. So we have a great relationship with him. So we're trying to build our relationship further.
Awesome. He's got a really cool name too.
Tamir Kafir. Yeah.
When it rhymes, it's always a good
It's
one.
always good.
That's why my parents named me Tori McGee. So where then can we find you on social media, James? I think you're on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, those are the areas here, and that's where I would just look under James Fowler Physical Therapy for Instagram and Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn. Okay. So come and join us and interact with us. We're going to be putting out all our kind of progress reports of how our programs are going.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to go and follow you right now because I'm really excited to see about all of it. And thank you again for taking the time to hang out with us today and teach us something brand new. So
great.
Thanks again. Enjoy that New York weather. Ladies and gents, thanks for hanging out with us and watching the Rapid Recovery Report. We will be back every last Thursday of the month. Please feel free to follow and subscribe to our social links, our YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys next month. Thanks so much again, James. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tori.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.